Being after 7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order, and we'll set up the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would just, before we start, like to take a few minutes and thank Heidi Gaffney for her service. Tonight's her last night, and she's been an outstanding conservation administrator and Topsfield's gain, and not the end of his loss. So I just want to thank you very, very much for all your help and work.
I could be so bold to say she came with great credentials and leave them with better credentials.
Wow!
And she's got a real job with a real paycheck.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure having you with us, helping us out.
There are no
job.
minutes.
Yeah. Not to go to meetings. Don't go to the meetings. Better get out of them somewhere.
There are no minutes, so the first one is NOI 242-1689, request to continue till March 8th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. 242-1697, 315 South Bradford Street, request to continue to 3/8.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Next one is 242-1699, 1 High Street.
So I did hear from Lisa just under an hour ago while she was driving. So she said that she did take a look at it and that I believe she spoke to you guys, but she said she was comfortable with it. The only question she really had was the board set up on the weir, and that it looked like if they wanted to, another board could be put in, allowing the pond to go higher than it should be, and she just really suggested that you condition that, it not, whatever that setup is, that a board not be, it be set up in a way that a board cannot be put on and raise the level of the pond higher than what it is supposed to be at. But that was super quick on the phone, and she had to run.
Delineations still has to be reestablished, and we do have an emergency cert in place if we want to continue with that, if you don't want to approve the NOI as.
Yep, so the emergency cert that they're operating under now expires on the 24th, but we've gotten a letter from the building commissioner and have a new emergency cert to be issued, ready to go, that would allow them to continue just installing the pipes. No other work, all the work on the NOI for the rest of the structures to be approved through you guys. But that emergency cert would allow the pipes to go in to alleviate the immediate flooding risk should we get a rain event.
You have a question?
Yeah, first of all, as you know, we've been real anxious to keep this thing going and not to slow it down. What we did talk about at the last meeting, though, is you were going to reach out to the commissioner at DEP to ask, because there was some question of whether the existing certification could be extended, or even if a second emergency certification could even be valid. It sounds to me like you've made some progress.
The CUs did that
Yeah.
on your behalf.
Okay.
And confirmed that we could issue an extension.
Which is what we had hoped was going to be the case. So it did.
No.
It's a second emergency cert.
Yeah.
We refile with a new cert rather than extend. That
Right.
procedure was more complicated to extend.
Well, that was that whole continuing and ongoing emergency that we talked about,
Right.
as opposed to an extension. Good.
Because the old cert was based on structural issues and tenants not being able to be in their building. Tenants have since moved back in. This new cert is based strictly on the flood risk that will happen in a rain event if work's not allowed to continue.
So that's great. That was really the only thing left open from the last meeting. So what this allows in the new emergency certification that we have ready to go, correct? A couple of days. Ready to go. So even though
It'll be issued before the new one expires.
before the other one expires, okay. That allows you to continue with various stabilization actions you're using, but not the installation of the pipe?
My understanding is the installation of the pipe is okay. The structures can't be put in place till those structures have been approved as part of the review of the NOI.
At the edge of the plot, the inlet
Right.
works, if you will.
Exactly. The dam weir structure that has been designed by DCI at this point has been sent to Lisa for her review. I think that's what stimulated the comment about, since we'll be putting in new gates, even though they're supposed to imitate the same elevations as the existing, that was the intent. And apparently I wasn't even aware, but because we're getting them as new structures as part of the new structure, we'll make sure that they aren't enhanced to any point that it would be different.
They're not, it's probably with the time crunch, they're not stop logs. They're wooden gates that are raised, so that as you raise the gate, the opening gets larger and larger.
So not
and
flash
larger.
boards, you could just simply keep
So
stacking in.
it's basically the opposite of flash boards. So I think that we can clarify that with the peer reviewer pretty
It's like
quick.
a sluice gate,
Yeah, and it's
wheel controlled.
Wheel
It's a
controlled.
A wooden structure comes
wooden
up.
structure to model exactly what was there prior.
Okay.
So that's why we picked the gate that we did.
So, just make sure I'm clear. So that headworks, everything you've just described,
Yep.
that's going to be covered under a separate NOI filing?
Under the-
Or is that going to be under this emergency cert?
Under this NOI that we have before you now.
Okay, under the NOI itself. So as of a couple of days, we're going to have the old emergency cert expiring, the new one in place to allow you to do some of the work, and then hopefully within 2 weeks, this NOI to be closed out and allow you to do the rest
So
of
all
the work.
So we've updated all the paperwork on the notice of intent. So we're asking for the extension, one, to buy us any appeals period, but also if, I know Jennifer started a draft in order of conditions, but if it weren't ready to be approved tonight, that 2 weeks from now, we could still approve it and be able to continue work.
So I get out there on Monday of this week and just kind of looked around and didn't do anything, dangerous. So I'm curious, the existing headworks that go under, into the area of the building where the problem was, you've plugged that pipe from the inside. Are you going to do anything with the headworks themselves? Are you going to eventually abandon them, or is that part of the NOI as well?
Well, our intent is to leave the visible parts of the structure sort of as a historic relic of the headworks that were there. We still intend to fill in the rest of, so we plugged to just above where the pipes were, which has left a gap of 5 to 8 feet or something that's still under where you walk over, that we want to fill so the water isn't gathering in there and could freeze or do other damage. But we would leave all that structure there, would just not be functional anyway.
Okay, so there's not going to be any disturbance of removing anything out of there, not taking that out?
Right,
It's gonna
right,
leave
just
it.
be filling within basically the bathtub that's in there, fill that up.
Okay, I'm all set. Good sequence.
Yeah, just some clarifications on the plan. I see there's elevation view and section view on what it looks to be the new pond outlet structure. Is there also a detail for the vault on interior? Okay, we just don't have that with us today.
Yeah, that was designed as part of the original submission,
Correct,
and
and
is
we're
in the
wait-
shop drawing process.
We're waiting for
but-
shop drawings on that. The precast has to manufacture and design some of it, so it's basically sized hydraulically, but now it needs to be done by the precaster, so it structurally supports truckloads and the type of activities that are there.
Those details need to be final for the NOI submission.
I think it was submitted maybe on the previous filing, wasn't updated on this. I know it was because we had the dimensions, it was 22 feet by 12 feet.
There was a conceptual that I think needs to be
Oh, I see.
more
So if you zoom in
detailed.
on the plan, the
Yeah.
elevations weren't done there, okay.
Oh, okay.
So,
I
but no,
believe-
we understand that, yeah, the commission should see that.
Yeah.
It is a narrative that describes the process. Some of the brick roof is cracked. We're going to put the steel pipes into it and backfill it with more concrete, so we've supported that. Then the structure goes in place, so there's a little bit of details that have to be worked out with that.
Okay, sounds
It's
good.
safe to say that a lot of that's going to be field decision as you're doing it, right? just how
Yeah.
it fits together.
I've had discussions, so the pipe is essentially stopped just before that structure. There's an old building foundation on that side. There's actually an old building foundation on the other side, close to the pond as well, that we broke through today. And so they want to get set up there and do some exploration about what they can fit into the existing culvert without damaging it. So they've been in the culvert, they've studied it, and they want to reinforce it essentially as they put the new pipes in. And we have a plan for that, but I think they want to be further investigation.
It's actually on this drawing, too. You can see it's pretty well detailed. I keep forgetting, you can see in front of me, right? So you can see the dotted structure. That's the piece that has to go out for shop drawings from the precaster. And then you can see that we get that existing arch opening where we're going to insert the 2 pipes in and then backfill around that with concrete to provide the support for the existing structure that's there. That's been deteriorated a little bit. So that's basically the plan. But with these precast structures, we specify it has to be HS20 loading for vehicles. But until we get the shop drawing from the contract from the manufacturer, the structure's not finalized.
Yeah, I think we're on a good path. Once we get final comments from Lisa, it looks like we're going pretty good. No more questions?
Hi, guys. So I have no question on your emergency cert, but with respect to the NOI, one of the things that I'm curious about, and this is not my area, so appreciate the question, is there some way in your repair to install or build in some type of an early warning system? I understand this was not foreseeable. I get that it was 100 years old. That's not lost on me. But now we are in 2017. The technology is here. Is there something you could incorporate into this system, something that would give you an opportunity to monitor so as to have some type of an early warning system going forward should something stupid happen in the pipe? And that's my question.
I don't know. Is there advice that doesn't?
We haven't thought about it, in detail, it's something we'd have to spend a little bit of time on.
Someplace where you could just put a camera?
Or almost like an eye that would set up.
Something, yeah, something. I'm
Yeah.
just,
Like an elevator type eye, right?
anything, yeah, I mean,
Collapsible
I'm sure the technology's out there. I know that, I work in a world of cameras, so there's got to be something somewhere that,
Yeah, you may,
Bad idea.
or you may be better off maybe doing a low-flow inspection type situation.
so if you could incorporate something like that into the NOI,
You
just
can do that.
an ounce of prevention. And
You had said right after when the emergency first happened, once you control the flow, you were able to make a manned entry in there and assess the degree of degradation. And took it back to this point where you found sound pipe to fashion onto. But I think Al's point's valid. It's just a matter of time.
We
It
had
could
routine
be for
inspections every few years, but that didn't. This we didn't know about until we happened to send people in to look at what was going on. Right.
There's a way to just get a view.
Right. Would have avoided the undermining if we'd had that.
Stream water through. You're not using any. There's not going to be any power in this anymore. So they're never going to be flowing full. So even up in the crest, there could be something that's high and dry, if you will, and be able to look down the pipe and monitor.
Yeah, they have underwater cameras, and should be something we can figure out along the route. So we'll look into that. Yep.
Basically, we're in pretty good shape. So if we continue for next 2 weeks, it should be already there.
Yeah. If we get granted the emergency cert, we can keep digging out and getting the temporary situation set up, and if we can get the NOI approved. So we would have to, on the timeline, I believe there's a 10-day appeal period we can't work in even after the approval of the NOI, so we'd be working pretty tight to the end of that. So we'll make sure we push along on whatever the final plans are, so the next time we'd be before you, hopefully we'll be able to get that
The
done.
main thing is to address Lisa's concerns. And I don't think they're deal breakers, so I think we're in good shape. I think you guys have done a great job, and I think we have given you a long leash. So
We appreciate it.
So I don't have any questions at all. Deb?
I don't have anything to add, but we really appreciate your work. And to Al's point, his preventive action is a really excellent idea.
Boy, thank you.
Deb? No comments. All right, so we need a motion to continue.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thanks a lot.
Do we have to take any action on this, sir?
Do we take any?
We have to vote on it, we just,
What do we need to do for the cert to keep them going?
We should do that tonight, too.
Yeah, you
Yeah, we
should.
have
I
it here,
have it. I had Louis, but yeah.
I've already signed.
So we'll just sign it and send it forward?
Sign
Yeah,
it.
Okay,
exactly.
Okay.
done
I
deal.
will. I will do it tonight. Thanks.
The next one is 242-1696, 50 Royal Crest Bioretention.
So Lisa emailed comments. Everyone should have her comments in their packets, I hope. This one is not drafted, so just so you know, it's not drafted. The OOC is not drafted. But Lisa said that she spoke with Ken Lanya, who's here, and did not have any further concerns other than she suggested that instead of allowing it to revert to a natural state, that would be a bad idea, and that it should be cleaned and mowed, which should be reflected in the O&M, which I believe Ken had already put in there. And she suggested some type of fencing, maybe just to separate what needs to be maintained from what doesn't need to be maintained, since everything is so close.
Permanent physical boundary area.
Just to prevent maintenance where maintenance is not wanted.
You're going to get it, there's not much to say.
Yeah. Sign me up.
I'm all set, no question.
No question.
The, you have a question?
No, I'm deferring to you, absolutely.
Is this that wetlands you were supposed to do in the back of the site? That in the back, this project here, is that?
Yep, so the one that, so at the previous hearing, let's see if I can turn myself around. The bioretention cell on the right-hand side of the plan by Building 14, you can see, Lisa had signed off on. And then for this meeting, the concerns that she had brought up about wicking away the wetland are by the left-hand side of the plan by Building 25. And yep,
But this abuts those back streets, correct?
it does. So
What-
Montero
what cut
Way.
the trees down.
That is correct. So in this triangle where that sediment forebay is being located is where the trees are that, were of a concern. Ultimately, when I spoke with Lisa, her major concern was she thought that the grading in this particular situation would have an opportunity to potentially drain that wetland and eliminate it from occurring. What I had provided to Jen and Lisa, we had gone out and actually did an additional swath of topography off-site and along that side, all the way down past Building 38, so that I could show Lisa how that flow continuously comes onto the property, and as you get past the property line, it constantly drains in not just this inlet, but also 3 other inlets along that lower side. So ultimately, she had kind of understood how I had modeled this proposed development based on the exact existing conditions that are there. We did go over the 254, 255, 1 foot of dead space at the bottom of the sedimentation basin, which originally she had a little bit of a concern of, but once I had outlined to her that we weren't trying to provide any volume storage in this particular basin, but it was used mostly to maintain quality for the flow coming onto the property so that we could maintain it. Because if you go out there today, and probably even 25 years ago, the inlets that I'm redoing here with this model are completely clogged or barely getting flow. They've never been maintained.
I think 40
Yeah.
years,
So, ultimately, the goal here is to provide an area to be maintained. I don't have a problem, putting a post and rail fence around the outside of that sediment basin closer to the property line. We already do have a proposed guardrail along the front facade by the parking area and the driveway. So if the commission would like, we can add a post and rail very similar to what we're putting around the pond, around the backside of the sediment forebay, so that the people that do go in to maintain it understand how it's to be maintained.
The reason why I asked that question, Jennifer had some issues about how many trees you were cutting down. Have you reduced that number, or is it still the same?
No, it's the same. I mean, the problem is, that they're not, I mean, that whole area had been forested at one point anyway, so the trees, they're not very old. There are some older, larger trees there, and I will try to keep them if I can, because again, this isn't a volume thing. I mean, the goal of this sediment forebay isn't to contain 10 acres of flow that's flowing onto the property. It's more to provide an area of treatment, collect that first flush of sticks, and whatever sand and silt could be coming off of Montero Way, and then ultimately have a spot that we can maintain, biannually.
Well, my concern is approving this project as it stands without having Jennifer review the trees, because there was trees there that she felt should stay. So I don't have a problem with the project as designed, and she's addressed Lisa's comments, but I haven't been out there. I think Jack went out there for a site review, I believe, the first time, and this has changed since then.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
That was a while ago.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with it. My problem is that Jen's not here, so she can't say yes, yay or nay about the trees. But she's expressed her concerns several times about the tree clearing.
I mean, I don't have a problem continuing this evening, and I'll work with Jen when she returns to try and have an order to be able to be drafted. We can mark the trees with Jen when she comes back, and then ultimately, hopefully, you guys can issue that order the same night on the 8th. That would be wonderful.
Well, that's what I was kind of thinking when I saw Jack and Joe with no questions, so I think the project is approvable. I just don't like to approve a project without Jennifer. She's been out there several times with you, and
Well, and I
I don't
think
wanna
there's a
find
few
that.
things, I think refinements, the O&M plan, as discussed.
Completed those and submitted them a month ago.
So,
So, yeah.
so absent the tree question, you raised a question about some sort of physical barrier to
Right.
protect.
what that is, too.
And in Lisa's comment, again, they kind of all play off each other and almost conflict with each other simultaneously, which is kind of scary. The fact that you need to create a sediment forebay requires the excavation down to give you that area to have that all happen. When you do that, you're disturbing the root mass, hence the tree removals. So they kind of play off that. Lisa's kind of come around full circle, understands that it's not going to have a negative impact to the abutting wetland, but at the same time says, now that you're doing that, you really have to maintain it. So one side of our criteria, we're going to say, you must frequently clean this area out for all those sticks and things that accumulate in there, not just once a year, but you have to do it on a regular basis. And at the same time, don't cross this line that we're about to tell you to fence off. So this is gonna be kind of like threading the needle on precisely what the heck do you intend to do there, and what do we expect you to do in this particular location. We've never gotten to this kind of detail before, but I think given what's proposed in this instance, I think we get down to that detail for the first time.
Yeah, and I'm comfortable with that. I can work that out with Jen when she returns. That's not a problem.
So we expect to show a location of the fence?
Absolutely.
On the plan, revised plan
Absolutely.
for next time?
And then what I'll do is I'll probably be providing a gate within that guardrail system so that we can get in there with the appropriate machinery, mowers, any type of small back excavators that might need to clean that out on a regular basis. I did converse back and forth with Lisa about actually rip-wrapping the base of this basin so that it'd be a little bit easier to clean out, but she felt as though she'd rather keep it natural but allow us to maintain it and have it mowed rather than trying to just let it revert back to a BVW and then never get treated.
You gotta do a little bit better than post and rail. We're not gonna, it's gonna have to be something that's more durable and more permanent. You can propose something,
Yeah, stockade
you
fence.
give us a.
So there's a 6-foot, wooden stockade fence around, if we were to go a little bit southerner. This abuts, that outlet swale abuts the service facility area, which is where they have all their dumpsters, the salt for the snow storage, that type of stuff. So we're gonna be working on that this year, and I intend to fence that completely in under the MSGP that I'll be applying for you guys, in a couple of months. So I can tie the fence going around this basin into that fence as well.
The only question, just so you don't go in the wrong direction, do we want it to be visible? Do we want a stockade fence that blocks view, or do we want, so we want, whatever fencing you decide to use, we want to be able to see it. Chain link is fine, guardrail is fine.
Yeah, I don't want it to be unsightly, I mean,
yeah.
something that's substantial.
But it's got to be substantial, and it has to be a view, obviously be able to see it, because if it's stockaded off and we can't see it, or you can't see it, stuff's going over it.
Well, what I was thinking more along the lines of is, I wasn't going to change the guardrail fence that's along the driveway. So from the Aimco side, you'll always be able to see into the basin. I was going to put the stockade fence along the BVW edge by the property line. Act as two reasons. One, it'll give a little bit of a visual barrier between the abutting property and Aimco. And then two, it will stop anything that might potentially blow in there from going into the neighbor's property, which is probably what that vegetated tree area does now anyways.
So I would say,
Yeah.
something like that, that gives you and your agents the ability to view. And, yeah, just propose it, and we'll hopefully like it.
All right, sounds good.
Yep. Doug? Motion?
Continue.
Continue, yes.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
Wonderful.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Ken.
guys. See you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Heidi. Good luck.
Next one is, this one? Yeah, 242, 1700.
Let's get to it.
Plans. The applicant's not here, just you guys, huh?
This is a new farm, but not really.
What's that?
Are you, do you need for me to leave?
No, we don't read them.
We no longer read.
Waive the reading.
We just look at the pictures.
Move right to it.
Just before we get too carried away, to be truthful, I don't think the pool's gonna be approvable, so we'll save time. It's, half of it's in the 25, and if Sean was here, that would be a no-no from the get-go. The deck, I would really address the deck. I mean, you can make any presentation you want to, but I would find it hard to believe that the commission would approve in-ground pool within the 25. So I would definitely concentrate on the deck tonight, and we can discuss the in-ground pool, but, and the movement of the shed, moving it from being in compliance to out of compliance is I don't understand that. I reviewed this today with Heidi, that's why I just want to give you a heads up, but I would concentrate on the deck first, and then we can discuss the other two things after.
So in regards to the shed, I thought it was a 25-foot that the commission wanted. Heidi enlightened me today that the commission wants sheds 50 feet away. I thought sheds were different, so I now understand that, and I now understand you don't want it 25 feet from the wetland.
Also, when we were doing this, the building inspector happened to be, the assistant building inspector happened to be there, and I don't think they have to go for a variance because you're too close to the property line. So even putting it, when you go for your building permit for the shed and the deck, he would tell you that was a no-no to begin with. I think, what did he tell us, 10 feet?
It's 15 for that zoning, 15 on the side, 30 front and back.
But not for a shed, though.
For shed,
For a
for the
shed?
shed, the pool's 10 feet.
Okay.
Or
So-
pools are
So
10
where it
feet.
was before was compliant.
Okay.
Where you have it now,
So
the plan is
It still
non-compliant.
did not have a building permit, though.
It does not,
The shed does not have a building
okay. Well, that'll be, it'll be out of
permit.
the,
Eligible for one where it sits, yes.
yeah, because it's big.
But it does not have one.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. So essentially, we wanted to expand the patio area. So the original patio was 20 feet, what was it, 20 by 13, and we'd like to expand it to the width of the house. So it'd be 30 feet by 13. So it won't actually be closer to the wetland. It'll just be the total width of the house. So we'd like to do that. We'd like to propose a deck within that area as well. I understand the commission's issues with the in-ground pool, but there was an above-ground pool on this property for a significant period of time. The house was built in the 50s. Old neighborhood, 10,000 square foot lots. I don't know if the commission would consider an above-ground pool, but certainly they had a pool here for at least 20 years. They just recently took it down. They want a pool. And is it something that the commission would consider, given the fact that this is an older neighborhood, an older home? Obviously, it doesn't comply with your setbacks. The resource area is actually located off-site. It's an intermittent stream bank. It's a 2-to-1 slope down to that area. Where the pool and the patio and the shed is proposed, it's an area of lawn. No trees would need to be cut. It's fairly flat in that area. I don't know if there's, I understand there's no grandfathering clause in your bylaws per se, but I don't know if the commission would consider any waivers.
Let's address the deck first, Joe. The deck would be just slightly into the 50. If
So I was trying to get an understanding of what is actually before us. So we have an existing deck they want to increase the size of, but across the width of the back of the house, but not extend any further to the back. Am I correct in?
So there was, this all started as an enforcement order with regard to the patio. So there was a patio there that was 20 feet wide by 13 feet deep. They had removed it and started installing a new patio. That's when the enforcement order got issued, work stopped, and so a plan came in for the patio, which now they want to go the full length of the house and make 30 feet long instead of 20 feet. And no, this is an NOI. Because the original enforcement order required an after-the-fact RDA for the patio.
How that we got here.
For the patio.
It started out as a patio project that they did on their own, not knowing any better, right? Somehow we found out about it, I don't know, neighbor called or whatever, we found out about it, and it became an enforcement order. We ordered them to stabilize, file an NOI, and in doing so, is that how it evolved? Since we're here, let's ask for everything we're looking for, or?
Yes, so we require them to file an after-the-fact RDA for the patio work. However, in talking to them, they wanted to do a deck and additional work. I actually didn't know about the pool till the NOI came in, but a deck and some additional work, and then, the shed, we realized the shed was after. So it ended up being, actually their consultant had, based on all the work they wanted to do, said we better go in with an NOI. So yes, what was going to be an RDA for the patio turned into an NOI because they have much more they want to do. That's how we got to the NOI.
That's what I was trying to get my arms around, because it seemed like we got a whole bunch of things that don't add up to this
Got
filing.
big. Yep.
So now it makes a lot more sense to me. So with that being the case, I mean, certainly it's an applicant's opportunity, but if they're coming before us, we've often said to them, if you want to do something in the future,
Yes.
ask for it now. And
That's exactly what
they're doing.
happened.
That's
That's
fair
exactly
enough.
what happened.
Now, maybe they're over ambitious of what they're asking for, in addition to what we, and look, I know these folks, their kids went to school with my kids, and nothing would make me feel better than to try to do something to help them out if that was possible, but I can tell you that there are dozens of these that we have denied in the past. With no one near the impacts that, as far as encroachment into the 25 or into the 50, as this is proposing. Sometimes on new construction, sometimes on reconstruction. I'm thinking of one up off of Salem Street up in the village there, where we had a real big issue, and they had come in and they landscaped their backyard. We found out by mistake through an enforcement order, and lo and behold, there was a pool coming in, and exactly, I think in the end, the pool either got greatly downsized or just eliminated to the other side of the house. So I think we'd be extremely inconsistent and disingenuous if we tried to show the leniency on this one. I just don't see how that's possible with what's before us. Patio, absolutely not a problem, and I think we haven't talked about it much, but it seems like the deck is not a problem at all. Whether there was previously a pool there, we certainly would have allowed it to stay there. We would have allowed them to maintain it. You know, we weren't going to tell them to stop mowing the lawn. We understand it's an age-old lot, and life goes on doing what you used to do, but I don't think we can allow it to expand upon that. And I wish there was more I could help with, but there isn't.
Jack?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much every point you made, Joe. And Joe and I are especially familiar with this area and this resource area behind, because I used to live about 5 houses up from this guy, and I like him, a good guy, Dennis, good guy. But I do want to make some distinctions, and Maureen, you had mentioned a small lot, 10,000 square feet, a million years old. We have, I guess, rationalized is a word, small waivers for, like, for instance, that patio, the corner of that patio, the north east corner of that patio encroaches into the 50-foot. It's maybe a third of the patio or a quarter of the patio. That's something that, in the spirit of the law, we would, understand that, the homeowner, we would put the interest of the homeowner using their lot, and rationalize a little bit of the waiver. However, that pool, okay, what's proposed is an in-ground pool, okay, and that is a structure, and it's within the 50, not only totally within the 50, but it's also within the 25, and that's, as Joe stated pretty well, that's something that I don't think we've ever done. I'm positive we've never done it with an in-ground pool. An above-ground pool, I think we've considered it, and I may be wrong, but I'll put it out there, I think we've considered it as a temporary structure in the past. Which could, we could consider it, and this is just my opinion, we could consider it to be located within the 50-foot no-build zone, since I think it is a temporary structure. What you've proposed here is a very big pool, and for a lot this size, it's perhaps oversized. I mean, to be realistic about it. And I think there is an opportunity to move that pool closer to the house, closer to the patio, reduce the size of the pool, make it an above ground. I think that's the absolute best you'll get out of this.
Just talk about moving the pool. What about moving the pool to the side of the house, outside the 50? With that shed that you are relocating somewhere in there, so it's along the side yard?
There's not enough real estate for that size pool along the side yard to be 10 feet off.
Make it narrow, is as wide, as big. Does that make it a narrower pool? You should have enough space to do it.
It would be a fairly narrow pool. I don't think it would be very aesthetically pleasing to be at the end of your driveway, that pool. It's certainly something that I could discuss with the homeowner to see if they would consider that, if they wanted an in-ground pool.
Well, I mean, the pool they got there is about the size of the house. I mean, it's somewhat outsized anyway on the lot, so. I mean, that's an option, located, redesign the pool and locate it along the side of the house. That's an option. But these temporary pools, above-ground pools, those are not very attractive. I mean, they're good for little kids, but that's about it.
Yeah.
No question.
Like I said, I knew that there was going to be the pool was gonna be a bone of contention, and you already know the sheds can't be put there. The pool, I mean, even on above ground, it's gonna be almost touching the 25, Jeff. I don't think we've ever approved a pool. And we didn't even talk about if, excuse me, they're not even showing a deck. It's decking around the in-ground pool. So, I mean, that even makes it more invasive. So, I mean, like I said, I feel bad for people when they want to do things to their yard, but this is not approvable.
I understand the commission's concern, and obviously we needed to come in front of you tonight anyhow for the enforcement issues. And essentially, I wanted this to be a wish list for the homeowner and work with the commission and see what it is that, we can possibly do with the lot. I'm hearing possibly an above-ground pool within the 50. I'm hearing possibly relocating the pool outside the 50-foot if we want an in-ground pool. What's the commission's point of view on the fire pit? Is that considered temporary as long as it's outside the 25-foot? Is that something that's... I'm sorry?
Stone fire pit, build it to the ground, something you place there and you can pick up and move. It's built
I
in,
think
then
if
that's
on this
permanent.
design, it would be built in.
Then it'd be permanent.
So that would be
I would think it'd be
permittable outside the 50-foot?
So what we've done is we've tried to draw the line between landscaping and hardscaping. Landscaping within the 25 and 50, certainly, well, 25 and further is certainly fair game. Hardscaping, we consider to be part of the structure, so,
Okay.
fire pits, patios, built-in benches, cabanas.
Well, be careful. You gotta stay,
Gotta-
you gotta stay pervious.
Yeah,
You gotta stay pervious. You can't go to an impervious.
But where we've drawn the line where it becomes obvious is
Yeah.
when you're hardscaping.
Yeah, we
It's
get-
something
yeah,
different than planting grass and trees and flower beds.
I'm with you, but can I make an observation, though? I've listened to everybody's comments, including yours, and from where I sit looking at this plan, there's a lot of room for modification to give you everything you want, or almost everything you want. The bottom line, the pool, number one, in-ground pool, you got to get it out of the 50. I don't see that being a big task for you.
That's the 25. That's a 25.
right here.
That's a 25,
Right here.
yeah.
This is the 50.
That's the
50's up to the house.
It's up to the house.
Yeah, there is no backyard for the 50.
There is no-
The
So,
only way to stay out
so
of
the pool can go in the 50, right?
Pool cannot.
The pool cannot.
Not an in-ground pool. We-
Outside of the 50, all right.
Never done that.
Depending on the type and the size of the above ground, I'm not sure, I heard what you said, I'm not sure we'd be
So-
unanimous in approving.
So look at,
I agree.
all right, I know, I misunderstood. So if you're looking at where your pool is, from the plan you submitted, looking at it to the left side of the house, if you downsize the pool just a little, you could get what you wanted. You just have to change the plan a little bit. I think that the direction you went in and the spacing between the deck and the pool and the wish list, I think is just a little bit overexpansive, given the direction you're heading in.
Okay, but
I'm ju-
I understand your concerns. I just had thought that since this subdivision was permitted in the 50s, it was an area of lawn, it's been disturbed.
What happened to the above-ground pools? Is it still there or is it gone?
It's gone. He removed it.
I mean,
In 2015,
well, see, that's,
it was removed in 2015, the aerial shot.
yeah, I mean, you
I
know,
would be careful. When I prefaced my comments, I said that we would allow them to maintain it, to even fortify it and strengthen it if it was falling apart. If it catastrophically failed, we'd probably allow them to replace it in kind. But to physically demolish it and come in with something different, it's a different animal.
I think that, I mean, you know, I guess at the risk of offering you free advice, and you know free advice is worth what it cost you, but you just gotta move some stuff around, I think, to get what you want, or you've got to modify your wish list.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you gotta find a way to respect the 2550, and you know, we'll work with you on that. We will. We've worked with you before, but what's in front of us now is just not a starter at all.
Well, I appreciate your time and your advice, and you never know unless you ask. That's my theory, so.
Have you guys come in yet? Probably haven't gone that far yet, right?
Yeah, we did.
We did?
Yeah, and I.
So what we, yeah,
My question is that
we still have procedure, we still have an enforcement order, so, I mean, at some point, we still have to act
Well,
on,
we have two issues. On the enforcement order, we have, I believe, $700 in fines. That was supposed to be addressed tonight. But we can't approve this project because we have too many things. The deck is approvable. We pretty much said that.
Yeah.
Pool is out, the shed's out, so we can't approve. Patio. We can't approve this project because we have two outstanding things.
so that's why we wanted to sit on the enforcement action, so we stop and stabilize, file. So they've met those requirements by filing. It doesn't obligate them to get the permit, but we also don't want this to languish any length of time. So we want to continue this to the next meeting. I think we stay the fines, they've satisfied by filing, I think. Right?
Yeah,
And,
yeah, I'd stay.
and then set some sort of, at least a mental deadline of when we expect this process to close out. I don't want to keep going back and forth of, we're sticking to the pool, and as a result, this thing never get, the deck and the patio never get permitted, because we still ultimately need to have that happen. So I'd say, I continue no more than 4 weeks.
They're not gonna waste your time, keep sending it back either, I mean, I'm sure you're not working for nothing, so you're not gonna keep coming back here, so. I mean,
And we have, so then they'd asked about the possible reduction of the fine, but we might as well just leave it for now until we see what
Let's see
they
what we
do
get
as
in
far
front of
as
us
the
first,
project.
let's see what comes in.
Right.
So what's the nature of the fine? Is it because they did an activity, or because they didn't act timely after we warned them? Which was it, or both?
Well, after the activity, there was enforcement orders, there was some personal issues, and then things still weren't enacted quickly enough, so the fines started issuing.
Would you say that the issuance of the fines is what expedited the filing?
I would say the fines assisted with expediting the filing.
Yes. So that's
And-
typically
So
And they
motivation it-
contacted-
we take all that into consideration, but I think it's premature.
money
for us
equals
to
compliance,
discuss
that's
that.
been our
We'll
motto
take
for-
all that.
We're gonna stay the fines, eliminate the enforcement order, and continue the NOI to the next meeting.
So we're going to stay the
Well,
accrual of the fine, because we
Right.
filed.
Yeah, the
We'll
fines,
discuss what we're going to do with the current fine later on, because
Right.
I don't think we have enough information at this point
Right.
to understand.
but there's no permit to do any work, there's still a cease and desist, right? They don't have
They
any,
don't have building a permit for the deck.
there's still a cease and desist, so nothing can happen. That needs to be understood.
Yep.
And we would hope, I know every one of us would hope that you could bring something back to us that we could approve. We'd like to be able to help them out. Bring us something we can do, you know?
I do have one thing to add. As we talked about possibly moving some of these structures around, it helps the submittals that request waivers whenever the no disturb zone is enhanced, on the plan. So you've got a 25-foot no disturb zone that runs the width of the backyard. Proposing plantings and markers in that area, for perpetual, let it revert to native species and all in perpetuity is something that the commission looks kindly on.
Good point.
So we need a motion to continue.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And, Mr. Chairman, just for the record, in case people know my address to be, I am not in the butter, I'm opposite end. I live up in 2,000 feet away from here.
1169, request to continue till 3/22.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Okay, next one is 242-1580, COC request for 1018 Osgood Street.
So this one was at planning last night, and the planning board voted to release the bond and the escrow pending. They were just looking for, the planning board needed proof of maintenance, however, we've already gotten it. So I believe, and I confirmed with Jen that this should be ready to issue, the COC.
No question.
Motion?
Move that we issue the certificate of compliance for 242-1580.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Next one is 242-1593, extension request for 16 Barry Street.
So this would extend it out to 2019, and because it's not filed under the bylaw, it's only through DEP, it can be done as a 2-year extension. Jen didn't see any issues with it.
No? Motion?
Move it. I second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
Who moves, who seconds?
Yeah, we're making this
I
tough on
moved,
Heidi. We're
he
bouncing
seconded.
around tonight. We're not keeping it.
It was
I know.
Jack and Joe.
I will say for 16 Berry, that the maintenance person they have he's on top of everything. He did not receive some of the stuff he needed, and he called us up and said, what do you have, and can we go over it? So, it's excellent, it's all you could ask for, right? He was, very proactive.
242-1523, modification request of 273 Berry Street.
So this one, I don't know if you remember this Berry Street one, but there was a house there, it was a tear down and rebuild. The order of conditions, there was a transfer on pool out there. Didn't have that determined actual status, but the builder sold it. The order cannot close, so it is still open because of plantings, but the plantings have not survived long enough. But the new owner, in the meantime, I think 2 years ago, put a new patio in, which was discovered when I went to go check out the plantings. And so you have an after-the-fact modification before you, for the patio he put in. He got an as-built plan done, and it is outside of the 50. And I pulled it up here.
So at what point does an after-the-fact modification become a violation?
This one?
Yeah, I know it's a different owner, but it,
Well,
They made the patio big like that.
and the issue was because it's still an open order, and he paid double after-the-fact modification fees, but coming in with an after-the-fact RDA under the open order, and
so that just allows them
And
to
this-
let the record be clean with regards to
yes, because,
the NOI, excuse me, with the order conditions, because we can modify it.
yeah, and the builder is wanting to come back, you know, what prompted this was the builder wants to come for his COC, and in the meantime, the new owner made changes.
By building the wall, he made that, everything behind the wall is considered wetland now, so that's all going back in. So whatever he took, which he didn't, which I have to see. But, you know, it's all seems to be, he's given us land. Away from the, he segregated the wetlands from the property.
So for some reason previously, we waived the 75-foot on this, huh?
Yes.
Because the house is in the no
This is-
build.
You said this was the knockdown?
Yeah, this was a,
This was the knockout, okay, yeah. I was confusing it with the other lot on Berry that we had trouble with.
I don't know if you remember which
No,
Berry
it's next
Street,
door.
but it was a knockdown rebuild, the old house was
it's not that, it's not him. 'Cause
way back.
We'd be talking.
No, that house is gone,
Right.
meaning sold.
That's right.
Yeah,
He never moved in.
yeah. That's a conversation for another time, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a sales pitch,
Yeah.
but this one, so this one, we waived that 75 back then.
Yeah.
That's when we
I
waived it,
remember-
yeah.
Now I remember this one.
Yeah, I remember too.
Yeah.
Okay.
and the wall has been registered.
But the wall is a good wall, substantial wall? You like it?
Yeah, it's pretty.
Well, can you take some, you're leaving. We gotta get, can we ask
I
Jenna
could email
some
you all pictures, because I'll be at
pictures?
my
I'd love
desk
to
for a
see some
while.
pictures of it for the file.
Yep.
Some pictures of the wall, because sometimes people ask us to show them examples of walls.
Oh, yes, I use this one as an example. This
All
is
right.
one of the ones I use.
The guy next one built a nice wall too, if I remember right.
That's a couple up.
A couple of, I think it's the same name.
I guess for the ephemeral pool protection, that's important. so.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so any more questions?
Any opportunities for monumentation on this?
It's already all done.
Is it good?
Yeah, yep.
No more questions? What's before?
The only one was modification tonight.
Yeah, they're looking for a mod.
Right, so I move that we grant the modification and update the record for 242-1523, submitting this drawing as the new record drawing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. And RDA for 1160 Great Pond Road, Brook School.
So this is from last meeting, which got continued, but unfortunately was missed on the agenda. It does not seem to be an issue. But Planning Board heard this one last night. This is for the soccer field grading bill. I spoke to Rebecca today, and they opened it and discussed it. You know, they have a lot more purview with the rest of the buildings, but with regard to the soccer field, they did say they're going to require soil testing for any of the fill used because they wanted to take soil from one of the buildings they're knocking down.
ourselves at the last meeting.
And that they are, there's no decision issued yet, of course, but they are, she is expecting the board would brought up the whole soil issue to condition soil testing for that fill.
So we raised the same sort of question without getting to that kind of detail. We raised it. So what we wanted to do was make certain that the planning board wasn't going to make any wholesale changes to the design that would negate our, our closing. So I think we can condition soil testing as well, and we can probably close. Can you do?
In general, we don't
We
close
can-
anything that's
On an RDA?
outstanding with the planning. Usually we don't.
So what's before planning? The rest, it's the rest of the project,
The whole
not,
thing. The whole thing's before
The
planning.
whole thing.
oh, because it's land disturbance in the watershed.
Because they're in the watershed.
Because they're in the watershed.
Yes, the whole
I was
thing's
thinking-
before
yeah,
planning under
we should
watershed.
continue. Continue, yeah, all right. I think we're set, but we should just continue on procedure.
In parallel.
Yeah, so moved.
I mean, they won't be able to get working until
We
planning
have a motion
finishes.
by Joe and a second by, we have them two, I think.
Open for discussion.
Okay?
No.
No?
I have no
Okay.
discussion.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. And motion to adjourn.
Do you have decisions or anything?
So
Oh, we
moved.
have one.
You have to deliberate it. Can't adjourn-
All right,
adjourn.
so we can't adjourn.
We're not doing this
The only
decision.
decision that was printed for you was printed
Yeah, we're not-
just in case, and you won't be
And we're
doing
not
it.
ready.
No,
And we're not ready for it.
No.
So we continued
it
High
was
Street.
just
We already
prepared in
continued.
case.
You want these?
So we're good to close? We have
Yeah,
nothing?
motion to adjourn. No, we're not closing. So moved.
Second on the
All those in
adjournment.
favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.